Chasing perfection stops more projects cold than failure ever will. Perfect thinking is that tiny voice that turns good enough into not good enough, so you keep tweaking instead of shipping. First tweak the same sentence for hours. First delay sending the email. You push the launch back one more day. We do this together. It's not about weakness. It's a habit that confuses safety with success and quietly steals time and confidence. Stick around for the next 2 minutes, and you'll see how perfect thinking sneaks in, how it costs you real opportunities, and 3 simple, slightly cheeky moves to break free and actually get things done. 1. Purity is a problem. Treating purity as the standard pushes people to measure worth by how spotless a choice looks, not by what actually works. In simple terms, purity thinking means deciding that only perfect counts, and anything less is a failure. First, edit the same sentence for hours because one word feels off, or first throw out a meal plan after one slip. These are small, everyday examples of the pattern. It shows up whenever first set rules that allow no exceptions, and then judge myself and others when those rules are broken. The problem shows up as frozen momentum. First delay sending a report because it isn't perfect, and the window for impact closes while first chase tiny improvements. First refuse social invitations because the menu feels off my strict rules, and then first miss a conversation that could have mattered. Creativity suffocates too. First erase drafts rather than share rough work, so ideas never get tested or improved. These are not moral failings. They're behaviors that create avoidable costs. Purity thinking also sharpens judgments toward other people. First point out small flaws in others as evidence they're failing, which pushes people away instead of helping them improve. First, demand absolute cleanliness of my schedule and get furious when something messy appears. That black and white stance makes collaboration brittle. Teams break under it because nuance and trade-offs are the currency of real-world projects. The hidden cost is missed learning. When first insist on flawless outcomes, first skip experiments and feedback loops that teach what actually works. First cancel a project instead of iterating, thinking failure would stain me. Instead, first lose the chance to learn. Practical fixes exist. Set a time limit and send a good enough draft, or allow one small rule to bend once a week. First try a messy meal that is mostly healthy rather than waiting for a perfectly clean plate. First send work for feedback, even though it feels raw. Shifting from purity to practicality is not a moral surrender. First trade the illusion of spotless outcomes for steady progress and kinder interactions. Small experiments, clear minimum standards, and a habit of sharing early reduce the paralysis and make life more usable. And yes, letting go a little is oddly freeing, like finally using dishes that have a few scratches and discovering they still hold soup just fine. 2. Where reality's dirt disappears. Perfection acts like a filter. It removes the messy bits of experience before anyone sees them. First do this when first crop a photo to hide the dirty dishes in the background, or when first rewrite an email until it sounds like a press release instead of something human. People sanitize their lives in small, familiar ways, editing, postponing, and polishing. And those actions quietly make the world look cleaner than it actually is. First do more than edit images. First ditch drafts that feel awkward. First cancel plans because first don't want to show up imperfect, and first rehearse conversations until they sound scripted. In daily life, this shows up as tiny rituals. Checking messages twice, adjusting a sentence 5 times, or rearranging a room to get the right shot. These habits erase the evidence of trial and error. And with each erase trace, first lose a chance to learn in public. The result is a neat surface that hides the bumps and the learning scars beneath. Sometimes the dirt disappears through memory. 2. First do selective remembering. First cling to successes and tuck away failures in mental folders labeled Never Mention. That gives the comforting illusion that problems are rare or avoidable. Social feeds make this easier. People present highlight reels, a polished meal, a finished project, a smiling vacation photo, so everyone's timelines look tidy. It's practical in a way. Polished posts get more attention, but it also teaches me to clean rather than to build, and building always involves spills. The consequences show up in relationships and growth. First, do less of the messy experimenting that leads to improvement because exposing flaws feels risky. Conversations become safer but shallower when first withhold the half-baked ideas. Teams lose momentum when drafts are hidden until perfect. On an individual level, first trade true resilience for the comfort of control, and that trade-off often costs creativity. Worse, when someone finally reveals a mistake, it can feel like an earthquake. Too many hidden cracks make collapses sudden and dramatic instead of manageable. There are small, practical moments that reveal this pattern clearly. First, do keep a drafts folder stuffed with deleted work, and my desk looks like a showroom the night before a video call. Friends will only ever see the finished cake, not the 3 burned batches that came before. These examples are ordinary and recognizable, and they show how perfectionism shaves off reality's rough edges until only a glossy version remains. Admitting first do these things doesn't blame anyone. It simply points out the mechanism. Once first notice the tendency to erase the messy parts. First can choose different actions. Leave a rough draft public, take a photo of the kitchen mid-recipe, or say out loud that first am still figuring things out. It's a small rebellion against the habit of disappearance, and it brings back the dirt that teaches, grounds, and eventually makes success feel honest. 3. Why errors are sterilized. Errors carry useful information, and when that information is cleaned away, the lesson disappears with it. People strip mistakes down to neat, blame-free summaries or scrub them out entirely, like pressure washing mud off a map until all the landmarks are gone. This happens because tidy records are easier to report, easier to file, and less likely to make someone uncomfortable. It is common and often well-meaning. First, do sanitize my notes before handing them in, because first want to look competent and because my manager prefers concise reports. Organizations and routines accelerate the sterilizing process. Checklists, templates, and performance metrics focus attention on end results rather than the messy trail that led there. For example, a maintenance team might log that a machine was fixed without preserving the trial and error steps that explain why the fault recurred. Software teams sometimes refactor code until it looks perfect, and in doing so they erase the comments and hacks that explained why a previous approach failed. These cleaned-up artifacts make audits comfortable, but they remove the context that prevents future mistakes. People do what keeps them safe in the short term, even if it costs the group learning in the long term. Sterilized errors create brittle systems and quieter anxieties. When the messy causes of failure are hidden, the same failure can come back, surprising everyone as if it were new. Teachers who correct every student mistake instantly might produce spotless homework, but students lose the chance to notice patterns in their own thinking. In healthcare, documenting only successful outcomes without recording near misses robs teams of critical warnings. Those examples show a simple truth. Hiding failure rarely makes it go away. It just makes the next person repeat it with more confidence. Instead of shame or secrecy, small habits preserve the useful parts of mistakes. First, do keep a notebook of what actually happened alongside official reports so the context survives. First, do share messy drafts or incident logs in team channels, labeling them as work in progress rather than proof of incompetence. Encourage debriefs that name what was surprising and what clues were missed, and keep raw notes from experiments instead of only final polished summaries. Lighten the mood while doing it. A little self-aware humor can help people admit error without falling on their swords, and watch learning grow. 4. The consequences of the fear of errors. Fear of making mistakes often causes people to act more cautiously than is useful, and that caution has real costs. It slows decisions because first do triple-check every option before choosing even when a quick call would have worked. It stifles learning, since trying and failing is how skills improve, and avoiding errors keeps practice shallow. In teams, this fear leads to hiding problems instead of sharing them, which turns small issues into big ones later on. In work settings, the consequences are easy to see. Deadlines slip when people play it safe, Innovation grinds to a halt when experiments are shelved and meetings fill up with hedging language instead of concrete plans. A software developer who refuses to push code until it is perfect can delay product releases and block other teammates. A teacher who avoids admitting uncertainty may miss chances to model how to learn from mistakes, leaving students to think that knowledge must be flawless before it shows up in class. Relationships and morale suffer as well. When first do protect myself by blaming circumstances or staying silent, trust erodes slowly. Colleagues stop offering help because they expect defensiveness, and creative contributions dry up. Teams become risk-averse and cling to familiar solutions, even when new approaches would save time and energy. The result is less engagement, higher turnover, and a workplace that feels safe in name but stagnant in practice. The personal cost mounts over time. Increased anxiety, a narrower sense of identity, and burnout from constant vigilance. People who tie their worth to being right do not give themselves permission to grow, and that rigid self-expectation makes recovery from setbacks harder. Small mistakes that could serve as stepping stones to competence instead become threats that must be avoided, and so progress slows. Learning to point out errors, fix them, and move on isn't just practical. It's what keeps skills sharp and life interesting. 5. The consequences of error-free patterns of behavior. Striving to eliminate every mistake often pushes people and systems into secrecy rather than improvement. When errors are punished or shamed, those small slips get hidden and the real problem grows unseen. In aviation and healthcare, safety improves when workers report near misses without fear, because those reports reveal patterns that prevent larger accidents. Conversely, in many offices, first do notice teammates quietly rework someone else's draft instead of admitting a missed detail, which hides process flaws and makes the same small failure recur. When error-free behavior becomes the norm, learning grinds to a halt and creativity gets muzzled. Teams that expect nothing but flawless work stop experimenting. They do only what has been proven safe, and that leads to slow, boring progress. First do hold back from pitching bold ideas when first think a single misstep will get me labeled, and that cautiousness kills the kinds of risk-taking that produce breakthroughs. Simple experiments and pilot projects are effective because they accept small failures as feedback. Removing that feedback loop leaves organizations reacting to crises instead of preventing them. Perfection, as a rule, also has human costs. Constant vigilance exhausts attention and fuels anxiety, and people burn out from maintaining unrealistic standards. First, do stay up late polishing slides until the message is dull, because missing a tiny error feels worse than losing sleep. That exhaustion reduces judgment, making later errors more likely and setting up a dangerous cycle. Humor helps. There's nothing like a perfectly labeled spreadsheet to make life feel both meaningful and hilariously absurd, but the underlying strain is real and counterproductive. Rigid, error-free routines produce brittle systems that break when reality shifts. Checklists and standard procedures are lifesavers in many settings. But if a crew only follows a script and never adapts, they fail when the unexpected arrives. First, do rely on standard steps to avoid simple mistakes. Yet first, also learn faster when teams practice what-if scenarios and cross-train, so multiple people can improvise when needed. Practical fixes include creating no-blame reporting, encouraging small safe-to-fail experiments, debriefing mistakes to extract lessons, and rewarding adaptive responses. Those steps reduce the pressure to hide errors and turn occasional slips into fuel for stronger, smarter behavior. Quick recap. Perfect thinking promises safety, but often cages us. It makes us delay, over-edit, and fear small failures. It shows up as saying things like, first do need everything flawless, first do fix the same sentence 10 times, or first do wait until the moment feels perfect. These are habits, not character flaws. You can loosen the grip with tiny moves. Set a short timer and ship a draft. Pick good enough for 80% of decisions, celebrate a small win, and practice saying first do to name the habit, not to blame yourself. Over time, progress beats polish. And yes, that typo might make a friendlier human of you. If you enjoyed this, try a little experiment today. Do something imperfectly and see what happens. Share your first sentence, one honest habit you're changing, in the comments, and let others know they're not alone. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, or stay tuned for more short and helpful ideas. In the next video, I'll show you how to treat intelligence as a form of control. Thanks for watching. Imperfectly perfect people do cool things, and we can't wait to see what you do next.